Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Getting In, a college coach conversation. I'm very excited. It's my first show of the new year. New year, new you. That's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm saying to the year. New year, new you. Enough of 2020. We are ready to turn a page. Um, anyway, my first show, and it's a great one, of course. We are going to be talking about med school gap years. We're also going to be talking about the do's and don'ts for asking for more money. If you get some scholarship dollars, you might feel like this is all you can get, but actually you can ask for more, and we have some tips on how to do that appropriately. But before we get to that, we have been talking on the show about some of our individual educators' personal experiences, and I'm very excited to welcome Alex Bickford to the show today. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Beth. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. So Alex and I work together. He also is a former financial aid officer at Southern New Hampshire University. And what's so interesting to me about Alex's story is that it starts with not wanting to go to college at all and ends with a master's degree. And he did it all in 5 years. So, which is a short time frame to start college and get a master's degree. So, Alex, paint me a picture. You're a senior in high school
Yeah,
and you have no desire to go to college.
none whatsoever. I think it was probably like October of my senior year, and my dad is asking me, "What are you going to do next year?" And I said, "I don't know. Like, we'll figure it out. Like,
Right.
I'll
I'm a
find a
boy.
job."
I'm
Exactly,
18.
exactly.
Right.
And I'd always been kind of like he always described me as enough to get by kind of kid. I did just what I needed to do in the classes I liked. I probably did pretty well. In the classes I didn't like, not as well. And he said, "Well, all right, you have two choices." He said, "You can get a job, work full time, and not live here,
Mhm.
uh, or you can go to college." I said, "Okay," but I had no guidance on how to do it, how to get
Sure.
there. Just thinking about what I wanted to major in was just mind-boggling to me how to figure that out. And I said, "Well, I'm working at the country club. I'm cooking there. I'll find a culinary school."
Okay.
And that's where I started.
Okay. So you start then and you start actually at Southern New Hampshire University, correct?
Yeah, it was New Hampshire College at the time, but yeah, Southern New Hampshire University.
And what tell us about the program? And so you decided to look for culinary arts and that was close by, and so you opted for that place?
Yeah, so I applied to three schools. That was the most, I think, traditional college experience. And I'm very glad I chose that one for what was to come afterwards, because had I gone to one of the other two options, it was very much a culinary hospitality school.
Okay.
And that would have been kind of where I ended up. So, I mean, the program at Southern New Hampshire was a 2-year program, it was an associate's degree program. And I think for folks who really love to cook and for folks who are really passionate about it was
Right.
beautiful. It probably was like the perfect program. For students who maybe just ended up there, it
Like you.
was right, exactly. It
Yeah.
was, I had a good time. I enjoyed it. It was fun. I like to cook, but it wasn't for me.
Got it. How long did it take you to figure out, this job at the country club and doing this for the rest of my life is probably not for me? Was that
Yeah,
quickly
it was
or?
very quickly. I would say it was a matter of I was working in the restaurant at the college one night and said, "My friends are out. They're having fun. They're doing this stuff, and if this is a career I want, I'm going to be here these
Right.
nights. I'm not
So
going to be out
true.
enjoying it." So I decided pretty much within the first semester that this was probably not for me.
So then what do you do? You've decided you're in a very specific program. You
Yeah.
know it's not what you want to do. How'd you handle that?
So I started thinking, okay, I want to transfer.
Mhm.
I want a different major. I like politics. I like history. I like, law maybe. And I start kind of thinking of all these things. And so I went to one of my professors and said, this is not for me. I don't know what to do, but it's not for me.
Mhm.
And she said, okay, you got a couple of different options. You are now at this point at the end of your second semester. Like
Mhm.
we're about to finish the year here. Certainly, you can look at transferring within the school. You can look at transferring outside of the school. You just got to think about how far that might set you back.
Right.
And so, if your goal is to get a 4-year degree in something different, you can probably finish this program here, 4 years, 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 be it not what you want, and then transfer in the school because they'll accept the first 2 years,
Hmm.
and you could probably get a bachelor's degree in something more up your alley.
Got it. So that's so interesting. What is also interesting to me, and I'd be curious about what of this was internal because you were already in school,
Hmm.
and what was paternal in terms of, well, remember, if you leave school, you leave our house.
Right.
What prevented you from dropping out
Yeah.
versus, saying, hey, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do something else.
Yes. So it was a couple of things. First of all, the program, I was still enjoying the program.
Okay.
While it wasn't going to be my career, it was not, I was doing well. I had friends. I liked the community there. I didn't want to go home. My
Okay.
friends were all off at college too. So I was going to come home to, I don't know what. I mean,
Right.
certainly family, but not what an 18-year-old is looking to go home for.
Right. Of course.
So it was nothing, unlike students who are struggling academically or might be struggling socially, that wasn't it for me. So I said, there's got to be a way to kind of power through and do something a little bit different.
Got it. So I think that I like that just to highlight that a little bit because in some of the other stories we've heard, it was people really,
Right.
taking a different path because they didn't like it. In your case, going, even in a program that you didn't love, proved to be a good choice because it got you to college, right? And then once you were there, you were like, oh, this isn't bad. I'll figure it out.
Well, and I realized that there was a world out there.
Yes.
I didn't kind of see that before college, and so the thought of choosing a major was overwhelming to me. And like you said, had I had to choose what I was really going to do, I would have never gone.
Right.
And so this just kind of opened the door to something.
Right, you committed to 2 years. Like, "Okay, I'll
Right.
do this," and then
Right.
you get there, and then you kind of figure it out, and,
Right.
what I like about this, again, is we do talk a lot about and I totally appreciate not necessarily wanting to spend a lot of money to go to school if you don't know what you wanna study, and yet, so many students either go without knowing what they wanna study or pick something or say they know, but then they change their mind and how that could still be a success story. So, speaking of, let's get back to your success story. So it sounds like you did stick it out then. You ultimately earned that associate's degree and then transferred, correct?
So I stayed within the school, and I went into kind of a different program, and it was kind of a similar kind of conversation of, okay, if I don't want to lose everything here, if I went into a traditional business program, a lot of those credits probably would be lost, and I would
Mhm.
be looking at another year, maybe a 5-year bachelor's program. And so I worked with my advisor at that point and said, hey, listen, the hospitality program is designed to take you in.
Right.
Uh, but there are a lot of electives built in there, and we can change those electives because you're talking business and you're talking education. Let's change those electives into the business electives or the education electives. And while you'll end up with a hospitality degree at the end, you'll have a lot of experience in a lot of different areas. And you
Mhm.
should have a good idea of then maybe some areas you might want to go into.
Right, and also you've got credits that are probably more likely to transfer, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
so
exactly
that's
it.
key. So you did transfer. What did you transfer into ultimately?
So I ultimately, towards the end of my bachelor's degree, was working in financial aid, and they said, hey, are you interested in staying on for a master's? And something that had never even crossed my mind. But when free tuition gets thrown at you, and especially for a kid who didn't know what the heck he was going to do in a year,
Right, right.
that was a really, really exciting offer. And so I ended up doing a master's in business education. Uh, and I think that was the first time that really, to any big degree, I had classes outside of this very niche area.
Yep,
So it was a really good difference for me, and it was just something that I was excited to be outside of an area. I was 4 years in an area that I just did because it was the easy way out. To be frank, it was the easy
sure.
way out, and finally in an area that I think was a little bit more up my alley.
And so was that when you were working in the financial aid office, was that like a work study job or was it a
Yeah.
real part-time job?
So it was at first it was a work study job, and I was happened to be there over the summer, and the phones were ringing like crazy, and so I was answering phones, and they said, "Well, how are you answering these questions?" And I said, "Because I've been, you were the file that always got. I was always the file that got audited. My dad always filed late. My dad was never did his taxes on time, so it was like a complicated system. So I was always on the phone with financial aid." And
Right.
so I said, I kind of know some of this stuff.
That's hilarious. So you have dad to thank, sort of like
Yes,
roundabout. That's funny.
roundabout. I never
Yeah.
thought about that. I'll have to call and thank him.
You will. You'll have to reach out to him. But I think that's another great piece here, right? Is actually, we just had a blog. I think Shannon wrote a blog a week or so ago about working while you're in college and whether or not that's a good thing. And here's a great example. You have an
It is a
entire
great thing.
career, right? Based on just a
Yes.
work study job.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if I hadn't done that, I still have, just for my work study days in financial aid, I had literally four moms and a dad, like that were there, that were always really concerned that everything was going okay for me.
Right.
So it's just people outside that are really looking out for you. So I think it's awesome if you can work through college.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that is so many really wonderful things about this and great examples of obviously it took your father kind of pushing you and then
Yep.
you also seeking out your advisor. And that's another thing I wanted to highlight is when you realized it wasn't for you, you went to someone who then was able to help you. I think sometimes students immediately go to their parents, and as a
Right.
parent, right, like I don't really necessarily know
Right.
what's in front of you, or how you might be able to work this out, or you go to your friends, or you don't go to anyone
Right.
and you suffer in silence, or you just drop out or whatever. But in this situation, you kind of used all the resources around you, and you got a work study job, which you must have, which you were assigned and needed, and then that ends up turning into a master's degree and a career. And it's just such a testament to making use of the people who are in that environment to support you.
That's right. If the college didn't have all the resources that it had, and that's what colleges have, they have these resources and they're there for a reason.
Right.
Had I not used them, you're right, I would have transferred, or I would have dropped out, or I would have something. It certainly wouldn't have been the path that I ended up on. And who knows if it would have been, a positive path. It could have very easily turned into something not as positive.
Well, and it could have very easily turned into a lot more money. I mean,
Yeah.
that is, that's at the core of all of this,
Right.
right? Is
Right.
you change your mind, and that's a situation that often we see students transfer and not all their credits transfer, and they end up having to add another year. Not only did you graduate on time with your 4-year degree,
Mhm.
but you added another year on, and it sounds like it was paid for even.
Yeah, it was. And like you said, had I transferred, it probably would have been that year just to get out of my bachelor's degree
Yes.
for an extra year of cost.
Right, exactly. And instead you had the 4-year cost and then throw in a master's degree and that's
Right.
free. So yeah, that's pretty any advice for people listening or parents of I don't want to pick on boys. I have a boy,
Right.
but maybe boys who are a little undermotivated or
Yeah.
girls
Yeah.
or any of that.
So it depends on where they are. If they're in the high school process, if you have a brain, if you like working with your brain, even if you don't know what it is, even if it's just a community college, start taking some classes in things that you're interested in. It
Mhm.
may not be the things that end up being your career, but things that interest you,
Right.
because I think that helps stir motivation. And once you're at college, definitely use the resources around you. Those people there want to help you, and they may not know you need help.
Right.
Me looking at me, I was doing well. Everything was going fine. They didn't know I needed help.
Right.
So had I not been kind of pushed to go and seek that help, like I said, things would have ended up very differently.
Yeah, I have to say, knowing you, I would guess that you were projecting and outward. You were probably lots of friends, going to
Yeah,
class, very engaged, and they would never have known. So
never would have
that's,
known.
yeah, that's really good advice. Alex, thanks so much for taking the time to join us and share your story today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Beth. It was great seeing you.
All right. We are going to take a really quick break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about gap years and medical school. So don't go away.